General for Civil Rights, who President Obama called one of the greatest secretaries of labor ever, a guy who's wicked smart, Tom Perez.
Mitch, thank you so much. And thank you to all of the hosts who are here. This is overwhelmingly humbling to look out here and see people, many of whom I see regularly, some of whom I haven't seen in a while. I just ran into someone that I worked with in 1999 at the Department of Health and Human Services with Donna Shalala. Everywhere I go, I have these there were your life moments. We did an event Sunday in San Francisco, and I ran into a guy who worked on my AG campaign in '06, the one where we got kicked out. Remember that one? I remember that one. I remember that one well. And so it's really been remarkably humbling. And again, thank you. I remember meeting Mitch in 2002. And when I first met you, I didn't know Jacob yet, because I don't know that Jacob had entered the planet quite yet. And Jacob and Julian, and Caesar and Jessica, thank you so much for your support. These kids are remarkable, and I wish I could find my son Rafa, because he's here somewhere. And you know, this is what I love. I'll give you an example of what I love about living in Tacoma Park. I got in last night. We were in Houston Friday, San Francisco Sunday, Las Vegas yesterday, got home early this morning. And I got home, and the first text message I had when I landed in BWI at about 12:30 was from my son, that had probably been sent when I was on the plane. He used to send me text messages that were all about, Dad, Poppy went yard again, because baseball is his passion. I don't know where he got that from. But his text message last night was, Sally Yates got fired. And I love my children, and I love my children's friends, because not only are they good kids with a great heart, but living in this community, it gives me so much optimism about the next generation, because here's a kid who's in 9th grade, and you know, the week after the election, a spontaneous march from Blair High School out University Boulevard, down Georgia Avenue, into Silver Spring, back to Blair High School, and he got back in time to take a math test. I kid you not. He did really crappy in it, I bet. But it did not matter. And that's what I love about where I live. And I have had the privilege over the last 8 years of traveling the country. And I've had the privilege of meeting remarkable people in the Obama administration, like my good friend John King, a proud resident of Tacoma Park, Maryland, and you know, someone whose both life story and professional life have been really an inspiration. And John, thank you for being here. And his kids got game. They are going to be stars. They're going to be our bosses someday. I have no doubt about that. And so I've just really enjoyed every time I come home. And I remember that rally we had not too far from here on 4 days' notice in downtown Silver Spring, just to say that, you know what, somos los Estados Unidos, no somos los Estados divididos. Somos un condado en que cada persona tiene valor. We are a county in which every person has value. We are the United States of America. That's why I am so proud to live here. And I want to start out by saying thank you. I want to start off by saying an even bigger thank you to someone I know who is here, but someone who is the most patient person in America. Because I was coming off of 8 years of what you know, Lin-Manuel would call in Hamilton nonstop. And you know, we were nonstop, and we sprinted through the finish line. And then November 8th happened, And it was really one of those where were you moments, because our grandchildren are going to study this era in the decades to come, and they're going to ask the question that's going to be studied side by side with the Know Nothing movement of the mid-19th century, and they're going to ask the question of us, because we weren't alive in the Know Nothing movement. They're going to ask the question now, where were you when the nation was at this critical fault line? And my wife Anne Marie said, we got to be in the fray. And she put up with me again. So I don't know where she is, but I would ask you, because this is always a team venture. And one of the things that has been most challenging for me just on a very personal level is this is the 12th year in a row I have coached at least one of my kids or more in a team sport. And I've been a lousy coach this year. When we signed up in October, I expected something different now. And so to Mitch and the other parents, I had previously apologized, but I have to apologize again. But the reality is, to get back to Lin-Manuel, history does have its eyes on us right now. History will be asking, where were we when? Martin Niemöller, that remarkable cleric who was part of the Nazi resistance, once said, first they came for the trade unionists and I did not speak up because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak up because I was not a Jew. And then eventually they came for me and there was no one left to speak up. I was in Houston Saturday and I went to the airport because I felt I needed to be there. And it was a remarkable tapestry of America. A remarkable tapestry of who we are. People of all faiths. People from all over the world. Houston is the second or third largest recipient of refugees in this world. And refugees are vetted far more vigilantly than the nominees of Donald Trump for his cabinet. That's for sure. The extreme vetting should be of the people in his cabinet, because he would learn that he has more billionaires than people of color in his cabinet. He has a Secretary of Education that wants to take the public out of education, who does not know what the IDEA is. That's an unfunded mandate. Well, actually it is an unfunded mandate, but that's an undue burden. No, it's not. It's one of the most important civil rights laws in America. You would think you might want to know about that before you go in there for a hearing. And yet, and I can't even talk about the guy replacing me. Donald, he claims to have drained the swamp. There are bigger alligators than I've ever seen in that swamp, my friends. That is the reality. And this alligator said, and I quote, "Being the labor secretary is the funnest thing I can think of doing with clothes on." That was how he described the Department of Labor. He talked about his employees. And he's pulled in as much as $10 million a year. He's talked about his employees as the worst of the worst. That's how he described his own workforce. You know what, folks? I met fast food workers in my office with the Fight for 15 movement. And I'll never forget that, because one fast food worker told me that he got sick one day. He couldn't go to work. And parenthetically, I want to say thank you, because I got issues when you have to go to work and you sneeze on things. You get people sick. And so I want to say thank you. And then the supervisor told him, if you don't come up with a doctor's note, you're fired. And he said, how can I come up with a doctor's note if I can't afford to go to the doctor? That was the reality of his life. That's the reality of the movement. That's the reality of what I see. That's what I saw out in Houston last Saturday night. People coming together to say, you know what? Donald Trump, you can deliver some blows to Lady Liberty, but you know what? The people will respond. Lady Liberty's torch will continue to shine brightly across this country. That's what they said in Houston. That's what they said the following day. We had a series of meetings in San Francisco the following afternoon when I arrived, and I said, let's cancel them. We can do them later, because we need to be here. We need to be there with folks. And Gustavo and others who were at Dulles Airport, thank you for going. Thank you for standing up, folks, because that's what it's all about right now. This is a where were you moment. I got asked by a journalist, but Tom, you don't have any of the levers of power. They have the presidency. They have the House. They have the Senate. We've got something far more powerful. 2.5 million people the day after the inauguration. They said, you know what, folks? They said we couldn't do it back in the day when they marched in Selma. They said we couldn't do it back in the day when people were marching for disability rights. They said we couldn't do it back in the day when people marched to Stonewall. They said we couldn't do it back in the day when the suffragettes were marching for women's equality. I'm telling you, folks, the incredible passion I'm seeing across the country is palpable. And there's two types of folks that I'm seeing. I'm seeing the Mitch Warrens of the world, the serial activists who will always be there. And thank God for you. They have to fill out on their 1040 form every year. When it says occupation, they have to put serial activists. And the serial activists are motivated. And thank God for that. But there's a second category of folks that I'm meeting. People who tell me, Tom, I was a casual participant in democracy until now. Because I have seen the consequences of my inaction. And I cannot allow that to happen anymore. Democracy is not a spectator sport. It's not a casual sport. And the reason I'm running for the DNC chair is because we've got to mobilize every person in America to make sure that we take the fight to Donald Trump. We can do this, my friends. I am confident we can do this. And we can do this by making sure we build a party structure in every state that's strong. You look at what happened in 2016, and it breaks your heart. But I'm telling you, it was preventable. We lost in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin for the same reason. We lost sight of the basics. We didn't make house calls. We forgot the principles that helped build Casa Maryland from a Band-Aid refugee assistance operation in the basement of a church to Casa Maryland, Casa Virginia, Casa Pennsylvania, Casa Delaware, Castillo de Maryland, as we say. And the basic operating philosophy was organize, organize, organize. You can't show up at a black church every 4th October and call that organizing. That's exactly what we did in Detroit. It's exactly what we did in Milwaukee. That's exactly the conversation I had yesterday in Las Vegas with African American leaders who were saying, you know what, folks, we did well in Las Vegas, we did well in Nevada, but we have a problem here, Houston. We're not making house calls. Mitt Romney got more votes than Donald Trump in Wisconsin, but we lost Wisconsin because we did not turn out the vote in Milwaukee and we got our ass kicked. We lost significantly in rural Wisconsin. We lost by a lot because we've stopped visiting rural Wisconsin. We've stopped visiting. You know, there are Howard County, Iowa, went for Obama by 21 points, went for Donald Trump by 21 points 4 years later. Folks, we can't simply say that every Donald Trump voter is a racist. That's inaccurate. There are undeniably the David Dukes of the world. But if we put our head in the sand and simply say, it was Comey, it was the Russians, it was the racist voters. Well, yes, Comey did something that nobody in the Justice Department ever should do. I prosecuted cases there. That was a black and white rule. It should never have been violated. It did make a difference. Putin is going to be named to the cabinet soon. I have no doubt. He will not be vetted either, because nobody appears to get vetted unless you are a refugee. But you know what, folks? We've got to look ourselves in the mirror as well and ask the simple questions, the important questions. How did this happen? And it happened because we ignored the basics of organizing. I talked to a party chair in Wyoming. She recruited 60 Democrats to run for office, called the DNC for help in candidate training. They told her, sorry, we can't help. I talked to young people, college Democrats. They wanted to run a fundraiser, and they asked for help, and the DNC told them, you're not allowed to have a fundraiser. I want to talk to that person who said that. I'd really like to, because we talk about the importance of engaging millennials, but budgets are moral documents. When someone says millennial engagement matters, my first question is, show me your budget. And our budget has been terrible on millennial engagement. The Republicans do it better. That's the reality. They're recruiting candidates. They're building the bench. They're doing the basics that we haven't done. We lost Florida for one simple reason. 4 years ago, they decided to invest in organizing 12 months a year, not just periodically. And they did that. And they found 130,000 votes that weren't there, that nobody's radar screened, folks. And you know what? We got election day, we were all giddy, because if you look at Florida, whoever wins Hillsborough County over the last 50 years has won, as Hillsborough County goes, so goes Florida. Well, guess what? The Democrats won Hillsborough County. And guess what? The Democrats lost Florida because we didn't organize. Shame on us. Here's the good news, folks. This is all fixable. It's fixable by changing the culture of the DNC so that we are working together, side by side with states, not in this master-servant relationship. We're more than just someone who elects a president. We're someone who helps to recruit candidates to the school board, to the state legislature, to the county council, to the Senate. That's what we do, to the Congress. How do we take back the Congress? I was asked today by a reporter. We take back state legislatures. That's how we do it. And that's what we have to do across the country. How do we continue to make progress? We go after one of the most pernicious forces in America that has been here for 10 years and it's going to be here for many years to come. And that is voter suppression. I know a little bit about this from my days in the Justice Department. Texas was a full employment act. South Carolina was a full employment act. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. The reason the Koch brothers do it is because it works. And we've got three really good people at the DNC working on this, going up against the Koch brothers operation. You do not go to a knife fight with a spoon. We need a bazooka, folks, not a spoon. And that's why we need to create a voter empowerment and protection unit, because it's not only playing defense, and we got to play defense, we should be playing offense. We should be doing a lot of what my friend Rob Ritchie, who may be here, is doing at Fair Vote. We should have, when you turn 18, you should be automatically registered. We should be looking at what to do about the Electoral College reform. We should be making it easier for people to vote early. We should be looking at those red states like Arizona. Arizona, a while back, passed a ballot initiative to have a redistricting commission. You know what? That's given us 2 more Democrats because it's a level playing field instead of a partisan gerrymander. There's a dozen states who are red states where you could do that by ballot initiative. But because we're not coordinating, we're not thinking about this. So folks, this is a where were you moment. And I know the answer for everyone in this room is, I am here making sure that climate change continues to be something we talk about, not something we hide. I am here to make sure that women's reproductive health is something we protect, because Planned Parenthood should be protected and expanded, not frozen out of money. And we've got to understand, folks, that the attacks on the labor movement, and he's going to announce an appointee. I predict, spoiler alert, that the appointee is going to suck. Okay? Spoiler alert. And one of the first things that person's going to do is try to eviscerate public sector collective bargaining, because there was a Supreme Court decision that went 4-4, and the only reason it went 4-4 is because Scalia had passed away. And we've got to be there to say, we will use the filibuster if you keep appointing and nominating far-right people. We've got to make sure we stand up. Because it's not a coincidence, my friends, that they're going after the labor movement and they're going after Planned Parenthood. That is the guts, in many respects, of our organizing infrastructure across America. And when you put a fork in that, if you can, it makes it a lot harder for progressives to move forward. That's why this job is important. That's why we need 50 states and all the territories to have a strong Democratic Party. I am chronically, and I know this may seem as a little odd to you, I am chronically and utterly, hey Ralph, how you doing, buddy? Any more news flashes for me? I am chronically optimistic, and here's why. We're going to win the governor's race in Virginia this year, no doubt about it. We're going to retire Chris Christie in New Jersey, okay? And here are two states, here are 3 states to watch in 2018. Georgia. You look at Gwinnett County, Georgia, suburban Atlanta, that went Democrat for the first time. Georgia can elect a Democratic governor. Georgia can move forward. You look at Arizona, with absolutely no help from the DNC, Hillary Clinton almost won Arizona. With absolutely no help in Georgia. They were competitive in Georgia. By the way, the biggest vote getter in the state of Mississippi, in a statewide race, is a guy named Jim Hood. A guy I've worked with a lot. He's the Attorney General. We can win Mississippi if we organize, and turn out people. We will win Michigan. In 1968, when the Republicans won and they took over the House and the Senate, in Ohio, they elected a Democrat 2 years later. In 1980, the same thing happened, and they elected a Democrat to governor in 2 years later in Ohio. We can do it there as well. We can do it only if we continue to turn this moment into a movement, folks. And that's why I need your help. A number of people have asked a very fair question, which is like, tell me more about this race. This race is kind of like the Iowa caucus. There's 447 voters. We know who they are, we know where they live, we know their phone numbers. It's different from the Iowa caucus in that they don't all live in Iowa. So you gotta go make house calls everywhere around the country. And that's why we've been down to Florida, we've been east. I've been in every time zone in the last 5 days. And that costs money, and that's why I appreciate the generosity that you have all shown. And everywhere I go, I'm seeing people with your energy. Folks who are ready to get out there and do something. Folks who are ready to organize. And if I have the privilege of winning, and I feel good about where we are right now, thanks to folks like you. I feel very good. And tomorrow, we'll have a special announcement from someone you know well in terms of endorsements. And next week, we'll have more. Because we got a lot of folks who are jumping on Team Tom. And the most important thing about Team Tom is the first word. We never accomplish anything in isolation. We only accomplish what matters in a team. And we have had a remarkable team. And this team across America of progressives, of folks who understand that history is watching us, we need to keep moving forward. You know, one of the last songs, and I'll leave you with this, in Hamilton, is when she asks the question after Alexander Hamilton has died. When she says, you know, when my time is up, will I have done enough? That is the question that we should all be asking. In the next 60 days, will we have done enough? In the next year, will we have done enough? In the next 2 years, will we have done enough? Done enough for those dreamers who are living in the shadows. Done enough for refugees who deserve our dignity and respect. Done enough for workers who are trying to feed their family. Done enough for those Fight for 15 workers. Done enough for those fast food workers who had to work for this low-road employer who's trying to be your labor secretary? No. Done enough. Thank you. Hell no. Done enough for women. The 1 in 5 women who go to Planned Parenthood across this country. We have to make sure that at the end of the day, we leave it all on the table. Because when we organize around these basic principles, our values are not what lost us the election, folks. Our values are timeless values. The value of opportunity, the value of economic security, the value that says there is no such thing as a spare American. No human being is illegal. Everyone should be treated with dignity. Those are our values as a Democrat. Those are our values as Americans. And when we put those values in place, when we organize, we win. That's what I'm hoping to do. And with your help, I think we can do it. So thank you so much for your support. Thanks for being here. And most importantly, thank you to my wife and my son and my 2 daughters who are in college, probably drinking illegally.